Excel 2016 came with a built-in waterfall chart. It made a lot of people happy because it made their life simpler. I was super excited when I heard about it and really impressed how simple it is to create the chart. But then when I started to make adjustments to the chart, I realized it's not that flexible. Basically, ease of use came at the cost of flexibility. In this lecture, I want to show you how to use Excel 2016's standard waterfall chart. You're going to see how great and simple it is. But I'm also going to take you through its restrictions and why I still prefer to create the waterfall chart from scratch, even in Excel 2016. It obviously involves more steps, but it comes with great flexibility. In the first example, I'm going to create a waterfall chart that shows the variables which influenced my values from sales to net income. You can see that I have a subtotal in the middle, that's my gross income. Other than that, I'm showing the value of the change. In some cases, they're positive, and in some cases, they are negative. I'm going to use the new Excel 2016 waterfall chart to design this. So all I have to do is highlight this area, including that empty cell right above my categories, and insert a waterfall chart. So that's this last one here. It says waterfall. Just click on it. Now, what's happened here? It's given me 3 series, one for increase, one decrease, and one total. Right now, I can see the 2. I can't see the total because Excel hasn't figured out which one of these are my total. So that's something that you have to tell it. But by default, it's figured out that if it's a positive value, it's an increase. If it's a negative value, it's a decrease, and it's showing it in a different color. To specify the total, all you have to do is to click on the column, that's your total, but not once, click twice until you get the remaining columns kind of faded out. Then you're sure that you've only selected this one. This is an advantage of Excel 2016 actually. Then right mouse click and set as total. See the color changed to this one. Now the same for the other ones. Right mouse click, set as total, and set as total. So now it looks better. I can remove the grid lines just like with any other chart, remove the legend. In this case, I can also remove my Y values and remove the border of my chart, the shape outline, no outline. That's it. That's how easy it is to create a waterfall chart in Excel 2016. Now I've included 2 other examples here. One with headcount, how headcount changed from 2016 to 2017 and the factors that influenced it, and another one that shows the net change in headcount by month from one year to the next. They're both using the same technique that I showed you here. It's very, very simple. But now, what about if I wanted to change the colors of this? What if I want my increase to be green and my decrease to be red? What if I want my data labels to sit on top? And what if I want my chart title to reference a cell? What if I want my connectors to be a different color? And what if my values go on the negative side of the axis? This is what takes us to the limitations of the waterfall chart. Let's have a look at these now. First, let's have a look at our series options. Just going to double click this to activate. Now, if we take a look at this, on first view, it looks similar to all our other charts, right? We have our series values, plot area, chart area, our data labels, and so on. If we go to the values, we can see we can control here the gap width. So that can be important in the waterfall because we might want to increase the distance between our bars. We could do that by inputting 100 here. And this is something new for the waterfall. You can show or hide the connector lines. I definitely like to always show the connector lines because it helps the reader understand all of these changes belong to one story. Notice that I can't control the shape or the color of my connectors here. So I couldn't choose a dashed line or make this a darker or a lighter color. Now this is a minor restriction. It's nothing major because by default in a lot of waterfall charts that I make, I use that color is my default. It might be a bit lighter than this, but this color will generally do. Now moving on to higher priority limitations. What if I wanted to color my increases in a different color? I don't want this blue, I want it to be green. And I want my decreases to be in red. What do I have to do? Let's take a look at our series options. Do you find that something is missing here? Or some things are missing here? When we originally inserted this chart, we saw 3 series. So Excel recognized that there are 3 series here because it gave us 3 different colors. One was increase, one was decrease, and the last was the total series. We can't see them here. We only see one series. And that means that we can't format them differently to the value series. So if I go to this value series and I want to change the color of this, I do a solid fill, obviously it applies that color to the entire series. Well, that's not something I want. And what if I just select this one series here? So let's go for this adjustments. I double click and I change the color of this to a green. And I don't want a border in this case. Obviously now this is not dynamic anymore. If this switches to minus 2000, it's still green. I don't want it to be green. I want it to be the color of the negative series. So I can't do that either. So where is this color coming from? Let's take a look at our design options. We have something called change colors. We have 4 options where we can fully change the color of the series. The rest are basically different shades of the same series. So is any of these what I want? No. Where is this color coming from? Well, it comes from your custom theme color, which is defined under page layout. Here under colors, you can see that I'm using by default the Office color scheme. If we go to customize color, you can see it here. Accent 1 is the blue, accent 2 is my orange, and accent 3 is my gray, which translates into increase, decrease, and total. So series number 1, series number 2, series number 3. To change this to the way I want, I need to change accent 1 to the green that I want, accent 2 to the red that I want, and accent 3 to the gray that I want. And save this. So we can save it under custom 2, or you can give it a name and save it. So now this should be dynamic. If I change this to minus 2000, it becomes series number 2, so it becomes red. But now what has happened to my other series, to my other waterfall charts? They've all changed based on the new theme color. And that's something you need to be aware of if you are changing your theme color to fit your standard waterfall chart, because by default it's going to change your other charts. Now if I insert a new chart here, what color do you think it's going to be? Just any chart. I'm going to go with a bar chart. It's going to be green because that's my new accent 1. If I add a new series to this, what color do you think it's going to be? It's going to be red because that's my accent 2, and my third one is going to be gray. So the fact that this waterfall chart is based on the theme color can be quite a restriction because it does influence your setup of your files. One thing I should mention though is that we have some design color options. Remember we had these 4 different options here? I could make this one different to the first one based on this. I have 4 options on doing this. So where are these other color combinations coming from? It's again from your theme color. So in case you need to have 2 different waterfall charts, you need to update the other colors, the other accents from your theme color. Let's go back to page layout, to colors. We're going to go to customize. So you see I still had yellow in there. I still have a blue in there. And that's where these colors are coming from. If I remove the yellow and make it this darker color, see, these are changed now. Everything is derived from the theme color, which can be a restriction. It would have worked great if we could have on the series options the increase and the decrease and the total series, and we could pick the color of each of the series ourselves independent to our theme color. The next restriction is the chart title. You can't reference cells anymore. See, you cannot even type in the formula bar. I think this must be a bug that was introduced with the new charts, because I wouldn't see why you shouldn't be able to control the chart title with a formula just like we can in all the other charts. So your only option here, if you want to use the standard chart title, is you have to type it in. But sometimes you want it to be dynamic. You want to reference a cell that already mentions the current year, so net income development in 2016, and then next year you want to show in 2017. This referencing of the chart title was quite a used feature that has been taken away. Now obviously your workaround for this is to insert a text box, because text box you can still reference to cells. What you would do is go to Format, click on a text box, put it here in your chart. You just have to make sure that you're not typing in the text box, but you click on it and then you type in the formula bar. You say equals this. Now, the problem with this is that this text box is independent to your chart, so you can pretty much move it anywhere. Even though we were on the chart, so we had activated the chart when we inserted the text box, it still is independent to the chart. So if we wanted to have it together with the chart, we have to click on that, click on the chart, right mouse click, and group them together as one object. This is something that we don't have to do with normal charts, because text boxes or any shapes that are inserted in the chart always stayed in the chart. I can show you with this example. This is a waterfall chart that we make from scratch. So this is not using Excel's 2016 standard waterfall chart. If I click on the chart object here and I go to insert a text box and I reference the cell just like I did before, this text box is a part of my chart. So look, I can't move outside the boundaries of the chart. If I put it here and I click on my chart, I can move it and the text box moves with it because it's an object in the chart. This doesn't happen with the new Excel 2016 waterfall chart because it's always independent to the chart. Now let's move on to the data labels. I generally have my data labels sitting on top. So even for negative values, this number sits on top here. I find that people can read it better. They look at all the values and then they see the amount, the shape of the change. So it's consistent across reading this story, this chart. Let's look at our options that we have for the data labels. We can position it outside end. That's the option I have right now. Inside end, center, and inside base. But there's nothing that says always on top. Normally, when I design charts and I want to fully control the data labels, I add a new series to the chart, I make it invisible, and then I activate the data labels for that invisible series and I connect them to the values. So this technique is something we're going to look at in later lectures when we design the waterfall chart from scratch. But now this is actually our next restriction. We can't add any other series to this that we can control. Let's try it. Let's ungroup this first. I'm just going to add the same series to this. Let's right mouse click, select data. Okay, until now I can add, right? The button is there. I call it new series. I'm going to add the same values to it. Let's say I want to change the chart type of this second series to a scatter plot. Okay, so I have my values, my new series. It didn't give me an error message. It all worked fine. And now let's go and find it. It's not there. It's just our values. It's not there. If I go to change chart type, I can see it. It's not there. I should see all my series listed here. I should be able to change the chart series type of each of them individually. I can't. I can show that to you. Let's see, in this one that we're going to see how to design later, if you go and change the chart type, this is what you should see. All the series in there, and you can define what type of series or chart type you want for that series. Even though it added it, it's invisible. That's the next restriction, that you cannot add additional series to this to get the effects that you want from this waterfall. The next restriction is how it handles the data when your series moves to the negative side. So let's go for our operating costs. So instead of minus 8,000, let's do minus 25,000. Does this look right to you? Doesn't look that right to me, because if I read this, I kind of get confused because by default, I think that's my x, right? So I'm sitting above 0, but I don't look like I'm above 0 because my end value is minus 2,000. So my 0 line is actually here, but it's not showing it to me there. It's keeping my line down here. Let's go and have a look at our options that we have for the axis. There's nothing in axis options. I can control tick marks and I can control the number, but that's it. On the fill and line, I can select to show no line. Okay, maybe then it's not that confusing. But it still is because I don't have a line here. It's the line here that really makes it clear that I'm going below the axis. What if I activate my y-axis? Okay, that's how it looks. It shows that it's 0 here, but there is no line here. and putting back the line still puts it on the minus 5,000. So it can be very misleading if your values are going on the negative side of the axis. Another restriction that you've probably noticed by now is that not all chart functionalities are available. On the axis side, we're missing axis options, we're missing the axis labels. If we go back to the standard Excel chart and I click on this, let's go to the options here, you can see we had all these axis options and we had these options for labels, which were missing in the standard Excel 2016 waterfall chart. And it's not just for the axis, but it's also for the other chart options that we had. Here we just have gap width. We can't select if we want to show it on the secondary axis. And we're missing any new series that we add to this. And the last restriction is that this only works in Excel 2016 and above. This is something you really have to keep in mind if you're creating a waterfall chart here that you're planning to send to other people. They need to have Excel 2016, otherwise they can't view the chart. To recap, let's summarize the advantages and the limitations of 2016 standard waterfall chart. Well, one of the advantages is that it's very easy to create. And the other one is that it doesn't require any special data preparation. It's very simple to do. You just highlight your data table and you insert your waterfall chart. As for the limitations, one is that your chart label can't reference cells. So basically you have to type in your chart title manually. Or you have to use a workaround where you insert a text box instead of the chart title, and then you connect the text box with a value in a cell, and then you group it together with your chart. But it takes a few more steps to do this. Number two is that your colors can only be controlled from the global color scheme. Now, this can be problematic if you're using your workbook and you have other standard charts in there. It can also be problematic if you want to show different waterfall charts that have different colors, because you're only restricted to the colors that you have available in your color scheme, and changing your color scheme changes the color of your standard charts. Number three is that your connector color can't be adjusted. By default, it's the gray color that's given. Number four is that your data label position is restricted to the 4 options that we saw before. So it's not possible to show your negative data labels above your delta bars. Which takes us to our next point, is that we can't add any other series to the chart. We can add it. We can physically add it to the chart, but they're not visible. We can't do anything with them. So we couldn't make a correction to the data label position by adding our own series to this. Number 6 is that your values, your bars, are not displayed correctly if you go on the negative side of the axis. What happens is that your line for the x-axis shifts down with your values. So it becomes very confusing for the readers because they don't understand, are they now below the axis or above the axis? So you have an incorrect visualization when your values are below the axis. Another limitation is that not all chart functionalities are available. So for the x-axis, we are missing some of the functionalities that we have in a normal chart. We're also missing some functionalities on the normal series itself. And a more obvious limitation is that, well, it's only compatible for anyone using Excel 2016. So that's something you really have to be sure if you're planning to share that workbook with other people. Overall, you can see that it's super easy to make. It's just not flexible. If you find that none of these limitations apply to you, that you're fine with the standard 2016 waterfall chart, that all the people who are going to be using this workbook have the same version of Excel, then you're going to be fine to use the standard version. But if you feel that any of these limitations do apply to you, that you'd rather be more flexible in the design of your waterfall chart and you want to have more control over the different elements in the waterfall chart, then you need to create it from scratch. That's what we're going to do in the next lectures, where I'm going to show you how to design different impressive waterfall charts from scratch, which are going to be compatible in older Excel versions as well.